All right, you guys, here in front of me is the 2022 redesigned Honda Civic. You can look at the front end here. Gone are the days of, staring at the front end of the Civic going, hey, where do these curves and where do these intakes end? Where does the body begin? It's quite integrated now. It's quite nice. It's Euro-inspired styling, and you can see here the Honda badge kind of actually goes into the body lines of the car. It's simple. It's easy on the eyes, yet at the same time, it's a little bit sharp, especially with this one specced out here in front of us today in this Sonic Gray Pearl. So it doesn't have a metallic to it. You can get a couple of other metallic colors that are a little bit more shouty, but here today, most importantly, how does it drive? So let's get in, let's get behind the wheel and see how she does. It's been a minute since Honda has redesigned the Civic, and this time around, it is a completely new direction. One of the first things I noticed when I was on Honda's site is that they specifically state that this new generation Civic has taken design cues from the Europeans. It says European inspired styling, which is absolutely the biggest change here right off the get-go is how the car looks. It doesn't have as much of a racy vibe. Like, when I look at the previous generation Civic, it almost seemed to me like it was reverse engineered. Like they designed the Civic Type-R to be as gaudy and ridiculous as it is, and then they kind of trickled it down into the base Civic, which still, especially the front end, had like a very busy kind of design going for it. And there were a lot of creases and edges and, air intakes, and there was a million different ways to look at the front of that car. Here, the new redesigned Civic is it's quite a bit different. It's absolutely got a little bit of Audi, specifically in the rear end. It looks nice, okay? So, in its base trim, in the LX trim, Civic here starts at $24,000 Canadian. This, the one we're driving here today, is the Touring model, okay? So, the LX, the EX, and the Sport all receive a port-injected 2-liter VTEC, yes, naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. This here, the Touring, comes with a 1.5-liter direct injection, turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. So big differences here. The lower tier models with that 2-liter naturally aspirated engine have 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. Whereas here, it is a much torquier and more powerful engine, 180 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. Now that's only up 6 horsepower from the previous generation. Now Civics, like I said, the biggest changes here are in design, exterior, both exterior and interior tech and interior materials and design here. As you can see, they've changed up the design quite a bit here. One of the first things we noticed is the honeycomb dash here and these new vent switches here. Even with the 1.5 turbo, it's a little bit to be lacking in the fun department. But what a huge improvement over the previous gen Civic. It is just overall the interior materials. Yes, in the Touring here, we have a leather trim package as well. But everything just seems to be incrementally improved. But overall, it's created a package that is a lot more comfortable, gives you more options, more things as standard than the previous generation. Now with the Touring, not only does the engine change up, there are a few other options you only get on the Touring and you do not get on any of the other trim packages here, and that would be wireless charging. You do not get rear heated seats. One of the biggest changes is a much larger 10.2-inch gauge cluster screen. So what Honda has done here, and this is probably one of the only aspects of the car that really just kind of takes me out of the more modern experience. Even though this is the upgraded 10.2-inch screen, when you look at the dash from afar, it does not take up the entirety of what you're looking at there. So what you kind of have is a screen on a screen, which just creates this weird border. It's kind of like an old CRT TV, or you know, how LCD TVs progressed, and as they got better and as they got newer, the edges got smaller and smaller and smaller until it was just gone. It was just what it was. Here, that is not the case. The digital display, great to look at. All right, so 3 driving modes: economy, normal, and sport. What this has is, yes, variable ratio electronic assisted power steering. So in fact, what I've noticed is it does a couple of things. At low speeds, it will extremely, actually to quite an extreme extent, lighten up the steering response. And as well, when you go into normal and into sport, it will change the ratio of the steering, not only from those 3 drive modes, but the deeper you get into the steering, it also changes up a little bit. Now, what takes me out of this experience the most, and yes, it is a Civic, it is a touring car, this is the touring trim package, it can only be fitted with a CVT. Okay, so much of the life that would have been thrust into the Civic's driving experience has been taken away here, although there is good news, because I'm happy to report that yes, the Civic hatchback is still available with a 6-speed manual transmission. Is that a turbo noise? I just had to shut up for a second. Low RPMs if you do use, okay, there's a redeeming quality for the paddle shifters. If you are wanting to use the illusion of having the selection of gears, then yeah, you'll hear a little bit of whoosh from the turbo. Not upset at all. Off camber corner, mid bump. Incredibly predictable. Super, super predictable. Steering's also actually, the first thing I noticed when driving the Civic, immediately when I got in, I'm like, oh, this steering's way better. This steering's way better. Around parking lots and low speed specifically, it is so tight, and it's not, it's so direct regardless of what drive mode you're in. And the transitions between the variable ratio and the steering weight are not separate, really. It's all very much, it's really seamless, but what an improvement. Now, we'll run through the corners here. We'll see how steering feel really does come alive when you're a little bit closer to the limits. LX, EX, and Sport models come with 215s, and the Touring model comes with 235s all the way around. So quite a bit of rubber, quite a bit of rubber. It's got all seasons on it. It does not have what the SI, the Type-R would have, which would be Pilot Super Sports, Pilot Sport 4Ss. All of the new Civic models, of course, are equipped as standard with Agile Handling Assist. So what that does is, in mostly on corner entry, what it will do is it will very slightly and strategically brake the inside wheels as to just create a more of a dive going into the corner and plant the weight to create the largest contact patch humanly possible to kind of just guide you around the corner. It just makes ease of handling that much smoother, and in combination with the variable ratio steering rack, it's a smooth handling car. It's come a long way from the previous generation. Not to say that the previous generation was bad. It's good in sport mode, you know, drive-by-wire obviously too, so the throttle tightens up a little bit. I would have a tendency just to leave it in automatic and not to use the paddle shifters, but if you must, you must. No turbo lag, but that's to be expected. And there isn't any noticeable kick in power at the top. 180 horsepower here is plenty. What you do feel is the torque. I don't know how you guys feel about the whole trend that has not gone away. It's showing no signs of disappearing from the automotive market in all ranges, all price brackets, is the screen tacked onto the dash. I've never been fine with it. I've never really been fine with it, but now it's been shoved in my face so many times that I don't really have a problem with it. I can't really complain about it too much, as it is such a nice display here, and they have improved a few things. I mean, it is, I'm not going to show navigation. It is fairly responsive. It is much more responsive than some of the previous Civics were, and it's clearer, it's bigger, and you only get the bigger screen. Again, here it's a 9-inch screen. On the lower tier models, the LX and the Sport and whatnot, it is only a 7-inch screen. It's just very interesting to see, in a way, where Honda's kind of given up on the kind of toyish tendencies from where the Civic came from. The Civic, in my mind, as a car enthusiast, now this is where I differ from a normie, but like any normal person thinks of a Civic, it's just an economy car. It's something you get into and you just don't want to spend any money on gas. It's NA, it doesn't have to have any power. For me, a Civic is a compact car that you can daily, but an extremely fun, lightweight, small, compact car that you can daily. Like I have this thought and this question, like, is this the right direction for the Honda Civic? I mean, like I said earlier, it is blatantly obvious, and they are stating explicitly that they are purposely taking European design cues. Now, this to me just states, it's just an admission of defeat. It's an admission of, oh, this is inevitable that they are right in terms of the way they're designing, and maybe it's their cars are selling better, and yes, there is a little bit of their cars look better for the most part. But a part of me also wants to think about, the EGs and the EKs of the world and the Type-Rs of the past, and the upcoming Type-R. It's going to have a much less boy racer feel to it, which is absolutely a good move. I think, though, the old Type-R just had a little bit too much going on. It was trying too hard to target who actually ends up buying those cars. But in doing so, it kind of alienated a large portion of who would otherwise be interested in a very fast, Nürburgring-inspired Honda Civic. But yeah, I guess time will tell. This is a great foundation for the Civic. Styling-wise, it's really grown on me. I think it looks great. It's been getting a lot of looks this week. People have noticed it. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you have not already. We have a few interesting cars coming up, a few new cars, a few used cars, a few modified cars, and any other shenanigans we might get up to. Hit me up on Instagram at Untraveled. And yes, please let me know in the comments below. This is a big turning point for the Civic, a huge departure styling-wise, and a more erring on the side of luxury and features and tech, which is kind of neat to see. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.